Please. So I think we're recording.
Okay, it says recording.
Yep, so it's on recording.
3 o'clock, we'll call the Yam Hill Water Advisory Committee meeting to order. Get a roll call.
Phillips here.
Wofford here.
Jensen here. Showing 3.
Roger's not here yet.
I know Paul is on his way to Utah, so he's not going to be with us. So he might be joining in by Zoom. Anyway, we'll move right down the list. No public comment, no public here, nobody in attendees. Logjam update, anything, Jason?
Just where we left off last time, HBH is gonna take that project on. That's what the funds are for.
It won't be till next year now, right?
Correct.
Yep.
You have your in-water work period that's passed. update on grants. I know that we're right in the middle of switching up and being able to use part of that grant funding that was gonna fund the transmission line from the reservoir, or from the water plant to the reservoir, partially to get some scope on what the intertie would be like as far as cost.
Makes sense.
I'll skip over the city hills, but I'll go back to it because it's the big one on the list. Leak detection and conservation plan. So with doing the rate study that we're gonna be doing with OAWU, they're gonna be partially looking at our conservation. Leak detection, I mean, we've covered that pretty heavily. Also to top that off with leak detection, we're buying a Simper for the city, so it's gonna indicate any kind of water loss immediately and alarm us through an app system that's from the water plant to the reservoir. It's just a center setup kind of singular station that alerts you at any kind of vibration or any kind of give in your water line. I guess in a more of a scientific way of putting that would be any kind of water pressure drop, more or less. So we'll be able to indicate where that water loss is. We're gonna put that there again at the reservoir, just to pinpoint kind of a longer range scope of work. The conservation plan, there again, OAWU is gonna take that on with the rate study. That's really just looking at water districts, looking at, you know, how many meters, what size they are, how much use should be coming out of them. We have been, like I stated before, we have been replacing the old meters with the new meters in slow increments. What we're doing it. Usage report, Kyle will have that for you guys next, because he just turned it over to OAWU for them to review it as far as the rate study is concerned. I don't have any updates on the district contracts, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Maintenance standards for the city, at least at this point. I mean, that's just, we're starting to get into bigger projects. They have a thing called now that are inserter valves. So what they do is they fit your size, the diameter in your pipe. It's a single, almost like a tap, but it installs a isolation valve. So we're gonna start doing 2 of those on our main line again, because of the issues we've had out at Darrell Rebold's place. We've had probably 3 leaks, excuse me, between Dean Brown's and Rebold's. So we're gonna put an insert a valve in there so we can isolate and not have to drain so much water out.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, there's 200,000 gallons, I think, last time let me back up a little bit, about 75,000 gallons we drained out of there that, you know, we had to because of the flow. Yeah, so that's great. I mean, technology's came a long ways with that. Water reads there again, OAW, we met with them. We've given them quite a bit of information to work with. They don't have an end date yet for me, but that's a simple email away. They're working on it as we speak though. They've got a lot of data collected from us and they're starting to work on it. Education. You know, that's one of those things that, you know, we're always open to educating the general public, you know, as far as anything they need to know. The impound project, that's one thing, if John's online now, he could, I know we talked about it before, but John.
I'm sorry, Jason, I didn't hear the question there.
Oh, it's okay, John. We're just discussing, we're going through this list right now. We're looking at if we have any impound project updates as far as that second impound.
Yeah, I've got a figure I'm trying to pull up here to present. We're working to get our kind of complete analysis wrapped up this week. Big picture, we don't think either an inline or an offline reservoir will be cost viable when compared to like a Hillsborough intertie.
Yeah.
Costs are just going to get too much to create this impound structure. The in-channel one, I think will just get buried in permitting with the state and federal agencies. Fish related cost is going to be, you know, $15 to $20 million on that. The off channel would be probably lower cost, but still a significant cost and doesn't provide the reliability of the intertie with Hillsborough.
Scratch that off the list and move our ducks back to the intertie.
One thing I was gonna bring up in this meeting, you know, with knowing what John just stated, if we wanted to go backwards and look at possibly getting that hard line from the impound we currently have to our water plant. I mean, I don't know what cost is, obviously, we're kind of taking a few steps ahead here, but that's still a viable option. in my opinion.
Just gotta decide where you're gonna put your money.
Yeah, exactly, you're right.
So if the Hillsborough intertie is something that's gonna go, I would not be putting a lot of money into the, yeah. Personally.
No, I hear you. With the CIP list, we did a review with OAWU with our rate study. Kind of like I told you guys, I mean, their mindset is, hey, let's knock some of these small ones off the list. Use that money, once we have a savings there, to start chipping away at those bigger ones, right? It's just kind of like credit card debt or any other debt that you've applied, so. It's pretty simple, there's some, you know, slam dunks on that list, as you guys probably saw, so.
Yeah.
We're gonna get those out of the way. Yeah, that about covers all of those. I guess we can roll into the update with the city of
Yes,
Hillsborough.
let's do that.
That's the big,
John. I'll let him speak to some of it. Do you want to speak to some of the city of Hillsborough intertie? And I'll cover some of the points that I have.
Sure. Yeah, we had a meeting with Hillsborough, also the Joint Water Commission. They're kind of one entity there. Carlton was on the call as well. And just to discuss, you know, what next steps might look like as far as creating that intertie with Hillsborough. So big picture, you know, we presented our approach for running the pipeline up Mount Richmond and tying in there at Cherry Grove. Hillsborough is open to that solution. They were going to provide Sharon with some information regarding connection fee costs and usage costs that we could then help to advance our study to understand, okay, what does it look like from both upfront capital costs and then long-term operation costs to connect to Hillsborough. Carlton came in with a plan. They also have an interest in connecting to Hillsborough. Their solution is running a pipeline up the old railroad grade where the Yamhillis Trail was proposed to go. So they want to go straight out of Carlton, basically due north up the old railroad grade right into Gaston. So
The railway trail was gonna be on?
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting thought process.
they were open to partnering with Yamhill on that first section between Gaston and Highway 240. So, you know, looking at cost sharing there, that's about 7 miles from Gaston to 240, compared to about 5 miles on the Mount Richmond route. So one of the, I guess, downsides of that Carlton project would be the connection from Hillsborough comes right into the distribution system.
Yeah.
Versus the Mount Richmond route where we're coming down and feeding the tanks. So operationally, it becomes a little more challenged to manage water pressure and have consistent water pressure throughout the city if you're integrating a new source directly into your distribution system. That was kind of the highlights on my list from Hillsborough discussion. Jason?
Yeah, so in regards to that subject, I know Shannon, like John stated, you know, Shannon at the city of Carlton, she's gotten the ball rolling with a few people at the state level. They're telling us basically that it's gonna look a lot better if we come together and come to a solution there as far as, you know, feasibility and cost. That's one thing to think about. There was a portion of that subject or that meeting that was in regards to SDCs and being able to pay out of our SDC funds as far as just the cost of what that intertie would be. Yeah, I mean, I think John really covered it. I mean, we don't know what the impacts into the rates would be at this point. I know right now they're going through a project, they have a Murray Smith project that's looking at, 35 to 40 million gallons, but that's like 10 to 20 years.
35 to 40 million dollars.
Oh, sorry, thank you. I didn't have dollars. I had, yeah.
And that's for a new pipeline from basically their Barney treatment plant all the way in to basically Forest Grove, where their other reservoirs are. And so part of the discussion there was that Hillsborough would be looking to Yamhill as a customer on that new line to pay a proportionate share of the cost of that improvement. And it would be done through rates. So if they're, what was
Yes.
clear was that they weren't gonna come to the city, say 10 years down the line and said, all right, we finished our $30 million project. You guys owe $3 million, write us a check. That's not how they're gonna roll it out.
Yeah, that's the best way of stating it. Yeah, it was gonna be through rates, so.
And that reminds me that Hillsborough is doing a rate study currently. And they're gonna integrate that into that analysis.
So where does Carlton, how do they think they're going to get that right of way all the way through?
According to them, and this is Brian speaking, they already have permission from county. Tentatively,
But doesn't the county's ownership end? Where does it end?
I am not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either on ownership of that rail line and who has the authority to approve that water line.
I think it comes back to it, it's not going to the reservoirs, it's going to. It's going,
It runs parallel with what our thoughts were, right?
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
the one positive with Carlton is, Shannon's been doing a lot of that legwork for us, and they've been pretty successful. She's been in one of their, state representatives' ear about this, so. There again, though, like John stated, keeping those pressures regulated, feeding our distribution system instead of our reservoir.
But to me, it's almost like you're gonna set up, you do another reservoir.
Well, that came to thought for me personally, was
Yeah.
maybe we do set up that, I mean,
Then you got
Hypothetically.
distribution coming from two different spots.
correct. Or we use it as a storage, just in case.
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, really, I've always liked the pathway that we were on.
I did
that was
too.
Mount Richmond to the reservoir.
And I guess if we don't go with Carlton's thought process, that's gonna put the whole bag in their court.
is it feasible to, if we came to Mount Richmond line, for Carlton to tie in from here and go down? I mean, it'd be coming through our system somewhat.
Would your line be would the line be big enough that's coming from the reservoir to down? To tee off a line to go into
Got
Carlton?
an 18-inch line coming in.
That'd be a question.
That's a question. It's a question.
Yeah, my gut response to that is yes, that 18 would be adequate. Carlton wasn't looking for full water service out of this. They were looking for similar to the city,
Mhm.
maybe 500 gallons a minute. If,
Yeah.
Yamhill's water treatment plant went down and you had to produce full load for the city for a short duration, you could run it through that line without any issue.
I mean, because we've already got the 4-inch line right going out south of town.
They'd have to pick up at
But
somewhere.
I can't speak for Carlton,
No.
but to say this, I mean, I don't think they want to deal with the permitting cost. It's gonna cost them to go through, Highway 47 to get to where they needed to go. It kind of just backtracks to where we were with them, trying to connect with the city of McMinnville.
I mean, would it be possible to upsize that line going south of town? And connecting right there where we talked about it prior, earlier with Carlton? I mean, Carlton would have to upgrade. I think they've only got a 2-inch line from Pryor south.
But to upgrade
You
any
could-
of that, where is the the district's water line in a right of way or is it in fields?
It's a right away.
It's in Highway 47 right away.
Carlton could still follow the rail line from Carlton to 240. Yam Hill's water master plan has a project to upsize the existing main line in Highway 240, basically from the school to the east edge of town. So that's a capital project that, you know, we know is gonna come at some point. So if you were feeding Carlton through the city system, that's the route I would recommend
I see.
versus running down 240 and upsizing that line.
'Cause in the master plan, isn't there for extending that line out 240 all the way out? And putting a reservoir in somewheres on our district's line? Back in Richard Howard days, we talked about that.
Yeah, there was discussion to eventually put a reservoir on the east side of town.
There's that's in the master plan, but not the upsizing.
Yeah,
Not quite.
Yeah.
What was contemplated at a high level on the master plan was a reservoir south of town off of 47.
go off of
Yeah,
47.
there was one, and then kind of off the record, there was a discussion of having one on the east side too, when
Yeah,
Richard was here.
it was just discussed, anyway,
I don't think it ever went anywhere.
yeah.
But I think you got the right idea. If you went 240, upsize that, and then if Carlton wanted to tie in, they could tie in right there at the bus barn.
So then you got who pays for the line coming from Cherry Grove to ours? Is that something Yam Hill takes on, or somehow you're gonna pass some of that cost on the city of Carlton? And I know it's not of our business question, but why doesn't the city of Carlton just keep hooked on McMinnville, that water line?
I think it's due to restrictions and cost.
And, 'cause I know that there's some restrictions.
I know they're negotiating costs, I can say that much, it's something that was brought up in the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my discussions with Carlton, it's been cost and restrictions.
But I know that when Mac Water and I was here, it wasn't meant to grow our town to hook onto their water line. It was meant to supplement and not grow. So that kind of took it off the board for me, so. Unless, because anything is gonna cost so much money to do it, it's gonna cost so much money to run that line. And then not be able to use it for the Yam Hill to grow, that seems kind of silly to me in my personal opinion. So the city of Hillsborough, if they're gonna not have restrictions on their water, makes more sense to me.
Personally, I would keep this relationship with Carlton going.
Yeah.
They're already, not from a engineering standpoint, but from a conversation and, you know, starting to get into the state representative level, they're beyond us right now, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say work out the intangibles as we continue this relationship and work forward, you know, towards our goals.
Yeah, and I think Kathy, to your question, I would envision it if we were able to talk Carlton into going the Mount Richmond route and then feeding through Yam Hill, that the Mount Richmond segment would be equal cost for Carlton and Yam Hill. Because that 5 miles of line that goes there replaces the 7 miles of line they would have needed between Gaston and 240.
It's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's feasible. I mean,
it sounds way better than anything I've listened to
Yeah.
so far.
in Hillsborough, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, John, but they've really seemed open to this idea. I mean, they're just saying, if you guys partner up, your chances are way better. I mean, they greatly increase, so.
There's just gonna have to be some agreement on the routes. Or how-
Yeah, and I think the level that Carlton's at, you know, if they're applying for intent for funding at some federal level, state level, or whatever it be, I think there's still an opportunity to refine the actual route. You know, they're just saying, we want to build X miles of pipeline, and this is the reason why we want to do it. So they're looking for that funding. So I think there's still opportunity to refine how that happens. But to Jason's point, maintaining that relationship is critical to
Yep.
kind of consolidate efforts to get funding for both municipalities under one funding push.
Good. Anything we need to do? Next steps, working with,
Shannon's gonna reach out to me with an email that she sent over to the state representative, just so that we can look it over and, you know, just to have an idea of what they're thinking and how they're approaching this. But I think at this point, we just kind of hold tight and, you know,
Yeah.
we just work that relationship the best we can and see if we can,
Suggest a different route.
yeah. I mean,
A
that's,
little
I
bit.
guess that's just the simplest way of putting it, and hopefully they're on board with it and we can go from there. Yeah, I've just been really, really happy with how receptive Hillsboro's been to this,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so.
I think so.
John, can you speak to the portions of the SDC, keeping our rates lower and paying through those SDCs? Did you catch a lot of that as far as just being able to rebuttal?
With respect to Hillsborough,
Yes.
okay, yeah, so the way that Hillsborough has this set up with, I believe, Gaston and LA Water is if one of those water providers adds a property, you know, single family residential, they pass through an SDC fee directly from Hillsborough. So if Hillsborough SDC fee, you know, is $7,500 for a water connection, that gets added on to Gaston's local SDC fee. It gets passed on to the home builder.
so if we had this in place today, the 57 new homes coming in, there would be a $7,500 SDC charge that would go to Hillsborough, correct?
Yeah, 7,500 is just a number I came up with, but
Okay,
in theory, yes, there would be a pass-through dollar value. Now, it sounded like there was some, I guess, nuance to that in how exactly Yamhill is using this water. If Yamhill's using the water to allow for expansion and growth, then yes, that SDC will be there. If it's really just that emergency or supplemental supply, it seemed like it was more questionable as to whether the city of Yamhill will be obligated to pass through an SDC fee to Hillsborough.
I think we're gonna be looking at it for growth.
Yeah.
That's what we stated it in the meeting.
Yeah.
I don't, in the future, I don't see us, one, we can't pull anymore from Turner Creek. And I just think we're gonna be looking at it for growth for the future.
Correct.
Which people that are adding, building more houses are.
Yeah.
And I mean, you look at it, Yamhill County's SDCs are fairly low compared to Washington and Multnomah and others, from what I've seen.
Price to build.
Well, it is, and having water is a necessary evil.
Yes.
So for anybody and everybody, but you're not gonna get all that, you know. There's a lot of rural people that would like more water too, but I don't know if that's ever gonna be feasible.
It might be in the future. I mean, I don't know how Hillsborough would, if you could do connections off that line coming from Cherry Grove. people up Mount Richmond or?
I'll say this, I say the next meeting, I'll contact Shannon and see if we could sit down with Carlton and our water advisory. committee, who we have on board, and
Mhm.
just kind of lightly discuss what the options are.
Yeah.
You know, I think that needs to be out on the table and just see if it's even feasible. So once we've reached that point, then we'll kind of navigate, you know, the heavy waters in which we need to
Yeah.
do financially and fiscally, so.
Yeah, if we can get, that'd be great, Jason, if we
Yeah,
can meet
I can
with,
do that.
meet with them next meeting and maybe kind of fine tune.
Yep.
Then we can start working on route funding.
Yep.
Then we have a more
What they need from us, right?
dialed in.
Yeah.
Plan, so that way if we go out for federal funding,
Correct.
we've kind of already
You gotta have a plan.
got the plan, we've got a agreed upon route and
Exactly. Strategically, we'll just, yeah, that's the way we'll do it. We'll just take step one is meeting with Carlton, see what we're thinking, you know, if we have to have a number of meetings, then so be it.
Yeah,
But right now, it's more or less, you know, what we want, what they want, and we just
We
need
have
to
to make
fill
this-
that gap.
meeting open to the public.
so.
I just checked Hillsborough's SDC fees. And their 3/4 inch SDC fee is $20,659 for a water service.
And Yam Hills is what? 3,000, 5,000?
Closer to five.
Karen would, I think it's closer to that $7,500 number, but
Yeah,
it's a fraction of what Hillsborough charges.
it's crazy.
I knew it was high, I mean,
I wouldn't guess that either.
That's just for water.
that's just for water, right?
That's
a good
sewer.
point, yeah.
So your SDC funds or whatever you call them,
I-
in Hillsborough's gonna be like $50,000 before you're all set.
It's-
It's,
Just to get the bare
it's spendy,
Yeah.
talking with builders and stuff up there, it is. That's why they don't want to build up there, they want to come down here.
You need to stay away.
But hey, you know, if you're building towards a redundant source, something that's always gonna be there,
Yeah,
it's money well spent. It's like Kathy said, you know, it's the necessary evil.
Yeah.
It's gotta have it.
and the thing I like about the Mount Richmond line is we still have our system online. So it's kind of a backup,
You know, and I guess if you're looking at however many years down the road when it was all done, you get it completed, you could maybe take some time and clean your impound out.
Yeah, that's
Give
the
yourself
biggie.
some more storage, so you aren't quite as dependent, but I don't know if, you gotta ask yourself, is it, that's gonna be a huge expense, is it gonna be worth the expense to do that when you have a consistent water source?
Yeah.
and having a.
But there again, I mean, like, I don't know if you guys part of the discussion, but it lengthens the lifespan of that water plant
Yeah,
greatly, you know, because we can shut it down, do all the any mechanical upgrades we need to do to it, because structurally it's pretty sound. And we can keep it online for a lot longer. I mean,
Yeah.
even if we shut it down, you know, during the summer months,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying that would happen.
Well, and like you said, if you had a leak or a problem between Hillsborough or something, you're not dead in the water,
Exactly.
you gotta,
I'll give you guys a scenario right now. When they shut that power down, we were running up to that reservoir, going mail in to mail in, just to keep that actuated valve open. You know,
Mhm.
and that's a scary thought, is that, because if that didn't work, we wouldn't have been able to, well, I mean, manually we could have opened it up, but still, it's so dated, that whole system, in a sense, that it's like, I mean, you're relying on a backup generator off of a pickup truck and
But it had generators up there.
not at the reservoir.
Oh, the reservoir.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to make that actuator valve work, and it's like, we all know these rolling blackouts are gonna come more often now,
Yep.
so it's.
yeah.
PG&E sold their excess power to California while they had to shut off. It's making money.
So anyways, well,
Well,
I'll set up that meeting with Shannon,
okay,
and
thank
we'll
you.
plan that for next meeting, so
Awesome.
I'll let you guys know if she has to switch up her schedule a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if we need to adjust, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So, anything else we need before we appreciate it, Jason? Thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Welcome, guys.
I think we're I said the Hillsborough thing was a key
Yeah.
thing, and I think it's looking good.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
So move, adjourn. Thanks, John. Have a good week.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. My notes weren't as clear as the way John can make it. That's for sure.
Well,
Yeah,
there's more to it than things.
it does, you guys. I mean, honestly, though, on surface level, just for conversation piece, they're really willing to work with us. I mean,
That was
they're-
great.
Yeah, they're like, they're reaching out, you know, now having Carlton.
Are you still being recorded?
Probably. You know. it's just-
Yeah, it's nice to have someone that wants to actually work together and do something.
Yeah, it feels good.
Yeah,
Sorry I was so brief, but.
that's okay, it's good enough.
Yeah.
You got, it answers some questions. I was just curious how the meeting went, so anyway.
It really does add 10 pounds.
Hmm? Oh, okay.